And there we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our monthly FEDSA talk. Thanks for joining us. I'll just quickly want to go through our sponsors and make a few announcements, and then we'll get on to the topic of our talk for this evening, which is by Schalk, who you all know, and he's doing a follow-up on the last talk he did on Local First. Okay, so yeah, just to thank our sponsors, KRS, who've been on board for a while now. They in particular sponsor our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for that, I recommend that you do. We'll post all the links in the chat. We send that out every 2 weeks, and we have a lot of just some interesting things that are happening in the front end and design space. And we include some interesting job postings, some recaps of previous talks and things like that. So have a look at that. And then we have two long-standing sponsors, NML and IO, who've been with FEDSA for many, many years, who sponsor us every month and help us to bring you these kinds of talks. Okay, then we've got a competition running at the moment. Oh, no, sorry, I'm jumping the gun. First of all, yeah, as I mentioned, Schalk is our speaker tonight. You can follow him on LinkedIn. And then you can post any comments or questions that you have in the live stream chat, both on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. And we'll tackle them at the end, or if it seems appropriate, we'll throw some on the screen as they come in. I've mentioned the newsletter. I'll post the link for that. And if anyone is interested in doing a talk on any topic, design or front-end related, please just get in touch with either Liesel, myself, Schalk, or Yusha via LinkedIn, and we will get back in touch with you. So if there's anything that you'd like to do a talk on, please feel free to get in touch with us, and we will make that happen. Right, then we are also just running a t-shirt competition. So FEDSA is going to have a representation at DevConf this year. We're going to have stands in Cape Town and Johannesburg, and we'd like to have an official FEDSA t-shirt designed by then. And we're opening this up to our community to submit designs if they are so inclined. We will give the winner a 500 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher. The winning design will be printed on the official FEDSA team shirts. These will be worn at DevConf on the 14th and 16th of May in front of 1,000 plus developers. Of course, you'll get your own shirt too, and then credit for that across all our channels, from Discord, Meetup, our newsletter, and so on. So if anyone's interested in taking part in that, I'll post the relevant links. We've got a very nice brief that was prepared by Candice, and then an entry form that you can fill in, and I'll post those in the chat as well. Okay. And then, yeah, finally, just to introduce the talk for tonight, practical CRDTs. Schalk, I think we'll need to start by defining what CRDTs are and what it stands for. But yeah, Schalk, our speaker tonight, I'm sure you're all familiar with him, co-organizer of FEDSA, and been a part of this community for many, many years, along with myself and Liesel and Yosha. Yes. So Schalk, I'll hand over to you to do more of an introduction of yourself if you want to, and then we can get into it. And just let me know when you want to share your screen.
Yeah. Oh, damn it, Justin. I was hoping you could keep it going for a bit more. I have a bit of a bug in my demo. Yeah, like that's how we're rolling tonight. But yeah, I mean, let's maybe we can just debug it together. Always fun. But yeah. I mean, there's more than enough for me to chat about the principles, and it's definitely just one part of it. So, all right. I'm quickly, let me just share my screen for the sake of transparency. I'm actually getting Copilot to see if I can figure out what the issue is. So, like this is a safe space. I just copy pasted the error and Copilot is seeing if it can find the problem for me.
We've probably all
But anyway.
done something similar at least once today.
Yeah, it's an async thing. It's because I'm running a function before the data is ready. Let's actually see what Copilot says. Now I need to check if save is valid. Okay, let's have it do its thing in the background. Okay, so
okay, cool.
Yeah, I think there's also quite a bit of theory to cover before, like,
yes,
I actually
indeed.
look at the practical stuff. So, okay, first things first. So, what is a CRDT? Okay, maybe I think let's oh, it's done. Okay, let's see what it. Sorry. Okay, it actually seems like it literally just destructured the function. Okay, sure. Let's go with it. Let's see what happens when we actually run that code. I mean, like, I'm keeping a bit of a cliffhanger now. Okay, so I think before that, let's maybe just kind of, so Justin mentioned that, like, I've kind of spoken about this in a previous session. And so we did a previous session on kind of local first and TanStack DB as well. And I think it's worth just recapping this. I think first and foremost, just because you might not have watched the other one, or just I think as a general, like, kind of housekeeping to recap it, but also because one thing that happened since we last spoke, which is like TanStack DB 1.6 was released, which has some pretty big changes. And some really great additions, which I actually let me actually see if I can find the message. So the one team that I work with, we actually spent, like, basically I said some good news and some bad news. Good news is they just added, like, WASM, not SQLite, PG Lite. Sorry, I said SQLite, PG Lite. So we can strip out a lot of the custom code we wrote. But the bad news is, like, this is what we spent the last 2 weeks on doing. So the good news is, like, they actually added, like, a really great persistence layer by means of PG Lite. And for those of you that don't know PG Lite is basically
sorry, StreamYard kicked me out for some reason. I'm back.
Okay, Mr. Imposter. So PG Lite is basically a kind of a Postgres, full-on Postgres implementation in the browser with WASM. So you can literally run Postgres in your browser. So that is kind of now what they are using under the hood. They do chat a bit here about kind of like they kind of had this internal conflict between, do they use PG Lite or do they use IndexedDB out of the box, or not out of the box as is. And like the benefit of using IndexedDB, I'm pretty sure I think PG Lite just wraps IndexedDB. But like they kind of like it's a very interesting read where they talk about like kind of the trade-offs and so forth. But sorry, not PG Lite, SQLite. Wait, I'm confusing myself so much. Oh, okay, never mind. It is SQLite, but like it's a version of SQLite that they are actually running inside WASM in the browser. Let me just see if I can find it. So persist. Okay, I'm not going to find it now. But so they added a lot of stuff. They also, one really cool thing that they added is they added like hierarchical queries. So previously you had to do like traditional kind of like joins. And I really don't like joins, doing joins on data. So, you know, like effectively now you can write kind of like a more GraphQL-like kind of query where you're like, okay, this thing, but then in this thing, get all the related things of this, and then get all the related things of this, and then project it. So when you're projecting the data, which is really cool. So instead of like having all these joins where you're kind of like messing around with the columns themselves, you're just creating like nested queries as one big one. But what's really cool about this so one of the drawbacks of something like GraphQL is kind of the performance overhead. But what's cool about this is because this uses kind of incremental diffing. What's it actually called? The library it uses under the hood is called, what is it? It is 2TS. I think it's D2. Yes, D2TS, which is like a really smart piece of technology. I think it's written by Kyle Matthews, who you guys might actually know from, he was the guy who created Gatsby back in the day, Gatsby.js. So he wrote this, which is really, there's a lot of like kind of theoretical underpinnings to this as well, which, like, if you find this type of thing interesting, check it out. So there's an entire paper on this kind of idea of a differential data flow. So all of this is based on kind of differential data flows. And the benefit being, like, this query, no matter how much you nest or how many wheres or whatever you have, TanStackDB is smart enough to just know what part has changed and only rerun that part. So if you're running the exact same query, but the only thing that's changed is the sorting, it's able to just incrementally rerun that little small part, which is like really cool. And it's one of the benefits you get from doing queries as reactive subscriptions instead of like traditional, like imperative queries, where you send it up to the database runs it, and it actually sends the data back down. By actually treating queries as a hook, quote unquote, against an actual like database, you can do lots of cool stuff here that you can't do with purely imperative queries. But like, yeah, obviously, in order to do that, you need to have a slice of the data on your local and so forth. And I think that's also a nice caveat into, so I just mentioned, like TanStack 06 came out. So I might just quickly touch on what TanStack is again itself. But like, I think like what I just mentioned now about, like kind of the differential data flow and kind of like running incremental queries and stuff is a nice segue, I guess, into local first, because, and this is something I touched on a lot last time, is local first is not offline first. Like, those are two different things. Like, local first doesn't mean that your app works offline, or it only works offline. It can, and kind of the idealized version of a local first app like would be like an app that you can use with no internet connection. But like that would be offline first. That would be, like your app or your thing works completely offline. And then after you have that, then you progressively add kind of like the servers and like kind of all that stuff as enhancements. So local first is a bit of a deviation from that. Local first effectively says, it doesn't necessarily even have to do with offline, but it says like, first ask if you can like have this data be queried and interacted with locally. So generally the principle is you generally have sync engines. So you have your database here and you have your app here. And instead of, like all your requests and stuff going to the database and then coming back, like this is kind of like the linchpin of your app. What local first says is, you obviously can't do this for everything, but in the same way, whereas mobile first doesn't mean only design or consider mobile, it just says start at mobile because it's easier to start with mobile and then when like progressively make decisions from there on. In the same way, it doesn't say everything needs to be local. It says if things can be local, start by asking first, can this be local? And then if it can't, then obviously you kind of work your way through that like heuristic. So what local first advocates for is that instead of directly talking to the database, like you kind of have your you have kind of like I'm just going to say L here. Let's just do X. Okay, so you kind of have a slice of the data locally, and you directly so this is the divide between like kind of the HTTP divide, and you just interact with this, and then there's some type of sync engine that just relays between these two, instead of like having this kind of like all the way. And it was really cool. I saw someone the other day kind of talk about this as kind of like actually the part that was missing from Flux. So I don't know if you guys remember, Flux was huge, like, just when React started picking up steam. And Flux is this idea that you have your you kind of effectively have your, I'm not going to get the terminology right, but let's say you have your view and you have your like kind of your actions, and you have kind of like your I think in Redux it's called resolvers, or
in Flux called it a dispatcher.
Yeah. So you have your is it your view, your dispatchers?
No, view, action, dispatcher. View, action, dispatcher, and then store.
Okay.
I'm also trying to remember.
Yeah. Okay, so but Flux used to be huge, but I think massive, actually a lot of people that might be even listening to this kind of weren't even around back then. But
quite
so
possible.
yeah, so you have this circular motion of data.
Sorry, Scott, there's a refresh in there as well. Yeah, just to send new data back. Yeah. But don't worry about it.
Okay, but so someone said like this is kind of like the part that was missing from Flux, because the thing is with Flux is that with Flux you did this, but only on the client side, and then you have the server here, and you still have to do your HTTP requests. Like this is nice. This is a nice principle for if you're only working with client state. But like now what you effectively have with kind of like some type of local first architecture is you have kind of like a wider circle going out, and then coming back in. So your store, I think it was, let me actually see if I can find it super quickly. I think it's Electric SQL, because like I think they kind of explain it much better than I would be able to. Let me just search. I think they have like a concept section, or was it Electric SQL? Geez, no, I can't remember. Quick start stacks. Yeah, who the hell knows now? Let me just quickly search for Flux local first. Who the hell? Oh, what is it? Let's just quickly try Electric SQL. It would be nice if I can actually share this, because it's a nice illustration. Or is it TanStack? I think it might actually be TanStack DB, actually. I'm going to try this now for 1 second. And then if I don't find, okay, but let's move on. But because you have kind of like these circular motions, you don't have this back and forth. Let me just see, is it under concepts? Or, okay, let's try one last time. It might be auto merge. Do they have like concepts? No. Okay. Okay. I don't know, but somewhere I'll share a link in the video description. Okay. But so let's just get rid of like all this. Is just an interesting aside. Okay. So the benefit of this is like, okay, sure. So there's a benefit here that some of your app might actually work offline, because like if this part like drops away, then you still have this, but this all depends on like what you're actually syncing. But like the big benefit, and I think this is something that gets lost like when people talk about like local first, is like the simplicity this brings to your stack. So you pay a bit of complexity up front by getting the setup working, But once the setup is working, and we're actually, I'll maybe talk about this a bit. Like I'm working on a product now for a client that's covered behind NDA, but it's one of the big fiber suppliers in South Africa, where we kind of have a local first. Because there's a lot of stuff that's happening in terms of protocols and whatever, so you can't be just polling the servers the whole time, and you can't, you just get lost in all these small little interactions. If this thing changes, then this needs to change. You need to fire this request, and remember when you update the user port number or whatever, then you have to remember to do this, or update the MAC address or whatever. So we kind of built a bit of a local first sync engine thing, and they are actually using, believe it or not, they're using MySQL, So I think a lot of times when people also talk about this and this approach, they immediately go to things I love PowerSync. No shade to the PowerSync guys. And the reason why I actually bring up PowerSync, because that is the first thing I would consider when I want to build this type of app. Because they give you local first out of the box. But I think, so obviously it does a lot of really smart stuff under the hood with web sockets and whatever to make it just plug and play. You don't have to configure anything. But obviously, when people think that about local first, they kind of think shit, now I need to use web sockets, and but this works with Postgres, and the same with Electric SQL. Now you basically have to. They have a basically a Postgres sync, and you have to configure all the stuff on your Postgres database. You can apply a lot of these principles of really old school technology as well, and just kind of write a lot of this yourself. Okay, but so with that out of the way, I just wanted to mention that, and I'm going to show this now. As an example as well, how this simplifies your app. Sorry, someone's making a lot of noise here in the background. It's my wife. Okay, so it's not my night. Okay, so where do CRDTs come in? I just wanted to recap the part about local first, and recap about local first is about abstracting away the network. Okay, so as with any type of abstraction, you need to kind of spend a bit of time up front just setting up the structure and the framework for that abstraction. But I think if once you have that set up, effectively no one working your app ever has to think about the network again. So this is really nice. If you also have a lot of juniors on your team. So let me just show a little bit of kind of the example app that I created. So I just have a basic app here. And so in this app, I'll show this to you guys in a second now. This uses TanStackDB under the hood. So I basically, this is just let's say this is a basic project management app. Okay, so you have projects, you have comments that people can add on tasks, attachments, you have custom statuses that you can apply to tasks, and then the tasks themselves and so forth. Okay, so let me show this quickly in action first, before we get into the CRDT part, because I can show you everything up until the CRDT part. You can get quite far with. So basically, I have these collections. So basically, this is basically my data. So I'm using the SQLite persistence that I mentioned that they just released. I'm just creating this. This is all just documented on TanStackDB. And then I just create my collections, and it's just ignore this commented out stuff for now. So I have 4 collections. I have projects, tasks, comments, status. Okay. and then I just like have an ID. This is just a unique identifier for that, for persistence and so forth. Then I just have a way to get a unique key. Obviously, every item in your collection, you need some type of primary key. So you just write, like I can make it the color or the label or whatever, but obviously it's the ID. And then just pass this persistence in. Like, how do you want it to persist? This is it. Like, just ignore this commented out stuff. This commented out stuff is for the CRDT part. And so, yeah, and like then once you have this, you can just go wild and query this directly in your code. So in my app, so I just call this Yapim, yet another project manager. So here's just for exporting the files and whatever. But so the logic itself, so where do I run my live queries data? Okay, so basically here I just do a live query. So from Tanstack, I get the Tanstack DB. I set up a live query hook. I get this queue, so I have a callback, and then I just run the actual query. I express the query on here, and here I just literally import projects directly. So this query that I created here, this collection I created here, I just import it directly, and I just literally pass it in here. Okay, and I don't give it anything, so it just gives me an array of all the projects back. Okay, and then so down here, I then just, where is it now? I then just loop over it, and I have all the data here now available. So you'll see here, I can do like project label, updated description. I can also check when it was synced and whatever, like these things with the $signs are internal Tanstack DB stuff. Yeah, so, and then I can open these. So let me just show this to you in action. So let me just clear all my local storage because I obviously just tested it out and added some stuff here. Okay, cool. So now I start with a fresh one right here. No, come on. Clear site. Why is it not clearing? Local index DB, delete database. It might be, is it syncing in the, this is very interesting. I'm not sure why it's not clearing. Whoops. I'll blame it on that Copilot that I let go wild. Okay. But so let's just create a project. So let's say add a new project, and let's just call this one Hello World Example. Let's say the color for that project, and let's add a description and add it in there. It immediately is there. And then I can drill into it. Here's all the info. I can create a task. Let's just, here's a task, status, add. So I wasn't able to completely build out all the logic for this app, but there is enough here to show the principle. Okay, so I add some 3 tasks to it. There you go. And I can edit them, afterwards if I want or whatever. I can go here and I can edit the cancel. I can edit the, let's say I want to change this to green as well. And I save that and you'll see it's instant. Okay. If I reload, okay, it's still there because it's, persisting it. Okay. So, but then, then how do I, so I'm basically doing this query against like all the projects that have been added. When I add a project, so where is the, so I have your project. So when I add a project, I basically I just do project insert. And so this create project, this is literally just like, it just does the validation. This just creates the object for me. But I pass in label description. And so I just insert it into the collection here. And then like the same here, so tasks. So for example, let's look at in a project. So if I'm in a project, if I'm looking at a specific project, where is, let me see. So here's, so if I'm editing a project, so all that I pass in is the ID of the one I want to edit. So then I pull in the projects collection here. I say where, I say find me the X ID, the project ID where it's the same as target, and I only want find one. And this is very similar to use effect in React. So you kind of just set it like when should it rerun this query. So when target changes. So I think like what's also really cool is you can basically pull these collections in from anywhere. So you effectively have a global store because you can just pull them in anywhere and query them. So you might even get, so you'll see the actual store that I have is actually minimal. I'm just storing two things. Or three things. I'm storing is there currently an overlay being shown? I store the token from Dropbox, and I just like whether the app is currently busy or not. I don't actually store any of the model data, like so the projects or whatever. That is all just in collections, and I can just pull these collections in anywhere and start querying them, which is really cool. So now the other thing is, I'm so miffed that why can I not clear this? I actually have no idea. I might need to try and access this in incognito mode.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what it is? You know what it is? I think it's automatically syncing.
Looks like, yeah, I think you're right.
Like, so I set it up, yeah. I maybe got a bit ahead of my... Yeah, I got a bit ahead of myself. And okay, so let's maybe actually do it in incognito mode. There we go. Okay, so I think it's actually syncing against Dropbox in the background. Okay, so let's say, so this is a blank one. So let's say hello world, whatever. So let's say you're building a local app, okay? And like this is pretty fine. You're kind of like managing stuff here, you're managing your tasks you need to do and so forth, but then you're like, shit man, like I need to like now actually go work on my machine at work. Okay, so what did we do in the olden times? Okay, so first of all, this persists. This persists. I had nice graphics I wanted to use as well, slides and stuff, but I just didn't have enough time. So what would you do? You'd go back up data, and then you'd have a JSON. Okay, and then you would just, put this on a flash drive. Okay, and then let me see if I create a new incognito now. Hopefully it's going to be clean again. Yes. Okay. Now you're on your other computer and you're like, cool, restore. Where's that? I go to my flash drive or whatever. Cool, there. And it imports everything again. Okay. So this is pretty trivial. Okay. And, and there's probably like a couple of like types of software that you can build where this is very viable. You're just importing and exporting JSON files, and that's how you back up. There's still apps to this day that I think like WhatsApp, up until a couple of years ago, like 3-4 years ago, this was how you'd back up your WhatsApp messages. You just like, and then you just save it like on Google Drive or whatever. But yeah, like, and I mean, this is super trivial. It's super simple. I basically I have a 2 JSON blob where I just get all the collections. So I say query once from projects. I just say select all, select all, select all, select all. And then I just massage the data kind of like into records. And basically then I just stringify it and I put it in a blob and I return that blob. And that blob is now the actual export. And then I just have like a 2 JSON file that just takes that blob and does the magic in the background where it creates a fake URL, all this stuff. If you've triggered any downloads via JavaScript, this song and dance where you create the URL, the anchor tag in memory, and you click it in memory and you remove it again and so forth. Okay, but can we make this maybe a bit nicer? So, if it's just a JSON file, so, let's go ahead and let's create a task here. Let's say task 1 and task 2. Let's say I'm working on my other machine now. And on that other machine, I'm also deciding like, hey, I want to change the color here to, let's make it yellow. Save. Whoops, I misclicked. Okay. Let's then save that. Okay. And obviously then I can just export it again. And then let's actually go to the one that's synced now. And now you're going to see the problem. So this is cool. I can have like this data like back and forth the whole time. I can just go restore. But here's the problem. Like what happens now is it overrides everything that was locally. Okay, so this is the problem that CRDTs solve for us. Like it seems very straightforward. Oh, you just put everything in a JSON file and you share that JSON file around and you import it, you export it, you import it, you export it. But like there's a couple of problems with that. And obviously I'm just using a very contrived example here of a JSON file, but I mean like with any type of sync engine, like you're going to run into these type of things where there's no way to communicate when something was deleted. Because the absence of something, like, so especially if you're doing partial syncs, so you want to see, okay, what's everything, like, I don't want to sync the entire database. There's no way to communicate that something was deleted because definitionally it being deleted, it's not going to be there in the response anymore. Okay, I think that's the first problem you run into when you actually when you try and do type of sync engines and stuff, like your very first attempt to do it yourself. The other one is just like granularity of data. So if I were to go and I were to change, like I were to once again like make this purple or whatever, like the entire JSON file, like it has no concept of diffing. It's just like I'm just like very bluntly just full on replacing everything. So what you can do is you can actually, and I've certainly done this in the past on projects that I've worked with, on like have much more granular merging of data where you kind of write all that logic and you're like this property, but then you have to keep track of, especially if you want to figure out, okay, which one was edited last. Like then you have to like have timestamps and lots of stuff, and like your data gets really messy. And so the CRDTs are kind of like a solution to this. But first, let me just show you, like, so obviously, if you want to take this one step further and not just manually import and export data, you can sync it with like Dropbox or whatever. So I can just log into my Dropbox. So I'm just using the Dropbox API here in the background. So there's a Dropbox NPM thing that you can, and I think like this is kind of like, you might not realize how cool this actually is, because I can do this. I can sync between devices. And if I log into my Dropbox over here, there's no database here. Like there's no database. There's no like authentication. I'm literally just using Dropbox. Because at the end of the day, if most of my local first, because I'm trying to use incognito mode, like if like I'm just using, and I think this is the thing about local first is, like you keep the server, but you keep the server as a sync layer. Like, what do you use the server for? You use the server to move data between devices and whatever. You don't. Your server isn't like the pivotal point around which. Check that. So I just click the restore data, and so if I make changes here, like let's say I change this to pink or whatever. Okay, just tell it to back it up. Okay, and then over here, just click restore. Hey, look at that. Okay, so, but like, so now the temptation might be, let's just have some polling in the background that just like fires every 10 seconds and so forth. And then you effectively, I mean, like you have effectively a real working web app, a collaborative web app that effectively all the querying logic and everything lives on the front end, and all you're doing is you're just pushing up to the user. Let me just log into my Dropbox. You're just pushing that file up to the Dropbox, and you can use Google Drive, you can use whatever you want, but you effectively drop all the complexity of see, so there it is. You effectively, so you'll see in Dropbox actually, you can register apps. You'll see here's, so for example, with Workflowy, I use exactly what I'm doing right here now. So I use Workflowy, and I'm literally, this isn't some weird, crazy Schalk trademarked way to do data that I just kind of experimented. This is a very a lot of apps use something like Dropbox to just keep data in sync. You have an apps folder then, and you can just save your data. So this is a Schalk example or whatever. But the problem is if you're doing polling and whatever, is that, let's say I'm working on this, someone else is working on another machine, we're working on the same thing here, and also you might be okay, cool, but also keep in mind, if you want to collaborate with people, you can just go do use that via permissions. All that you can do is you can say that, and once again, this isn't a Dropbox specific thing. This is we can probably do this with Google Drive or whatever. And I can just, let's just add Justin Slack here. Okay, and say that he can view. Okay, let's give him view permissions. And then with whatever interface, however I handle this in my app, maybe he has to put in, I maybe share the, how do I get the URL or whatever? Can you do that? Okay, but whatever. Maybe I just share the ID of the file with him or whatever, and he goes into his instance, and he's there's maybe instead of saying restore, this is obviously a very basic implementation, but he's join team or whatever. If you think about Slack, it's not that different from just going here and saying cool, sign into another workspace.
And the same, Figma is another example.
And it can literally just, you don't even need a database. It can literally, and then people can collaborate. Okay, but there's this one part that's missing is let's say you're polling every 10 seconds or whatever. The big problem there is if I change this thing to blue and he changes it to green, if my polling fires 3 seconds before him, his is just gonna it's just gonna happen underneath his feet while he's editing. Okay, there's no sense of what happened after what, and or not even that. If he's changing something over here and it's pulling down my entire JSON file, and it's just replacing all his stuff he's currently busy working with. As an example, I remember I mentioned WhatsApp, and remember back in, I haven't gotten a new phone in a while, so I don't know if it's still this way, but I remember WhatsApp, there was this thing where you could sync it to Google Drive or whatever, and then you can restore it when you get a new phone. But the problem is that split second where if you sign into WhatsApp, new messages start coming through, and then once you restore, it overrides all those messages, and you lose, there's a little window of messages that you lose because it just flat out dumps it and overrides. I
experienced that recently when I got a new phone.
Exactly.
It's annoying.
Yes, so CRDTs kind of solve that problem, and I think let's actually not chat about CRDTs, because I think I spoke about local first. But I think it's important to understand what problem it solves, and the thing is, you can, if it's just you working on this and there's no one else working on this, what I have here is 100% perfect. I can back this up. I can even have it polling as long as I just only use one device at a time. And a lot of apps do this. But once you start like having more collaborative or super interactive stuff, this is also not a problem if things are by nature hierarchical. So when things like WhatsApp, this actually works fine because like things, you can only get new messages. Like messages in the past can't be deleted. In theory, it can, but like it actually just marks it as inactive. You can't really edit. If you've sent a message, you like, as far as I understand, you can't go back and now change that message a week after you've sent it. I think you can still change it if the other person hasn't read it yet. So like if you are not actually performing retroactive changes to the data, you're going to actually do this. This is fine because you're just adding new data. Every sync, you're just adding new data. The problem comes in when you can retroactively change old data. And then you kind of get into states where it's like, how do I now merge these changes that you made, this guy made from last week? You've changed this thing. Like, how do I merge all this stuff? Things no longer make sense anymore. So what CRDTs do is CRDTs, and we're finally going to chat about what CRDTs stand for. CRDTs, okay? So it is for, I'm going to try and do this from memory, correct me if I'm wrong. It's conflict-free.
Yep.
I'm going to leave that part now. Data types. It is, I always get it wrong. I always want to say resolution. It's
shall I help you? Shall I?
But it has to do with like actually merging things.
Yes.
What is it? Replicated. Yeah, or replication. Ah, yes. Okay, there we go. I remembered it last minute. Okay. So conflict-free. What does this mean? This means that if I have like this device, all of them are kind of like they have their own local version. They're doing crazy stuff. This guy's doing that thing. This guy's doing this thing. At any point, I should be able to go, cool, combine all of this. And it should just work. It should just be able to, whenever you should be able to just merge data. No ifs or buts or whatever. Data should always just merge, okay? And replicated, this is effectively speaking to the, this part, where you have this, and you're keeping these things in sync. Like the benefit of this part is that you don't have replication. So you're always talking to the source of truth. But the problem is that you, like whenever you are actually writing logic, you have to, like this entire thing isn't abstracted away from you. You have to consider this entire thing. Whereas with this, I just need to be like, okay, I'm going to add a new project. I'm going to add a new task. I'm going to whatever. I don't have to worry about like, status codes and posts and gets and, but what happens if this thing comes back and race conditions and whatever? Because like you are just working against this and this thing is just like kept in sync with that. And CRDTs are a nice way to actually do that. So the replicated speaks to like it's, on several devices. And then data, like this is self-explanatory. It's and type. And I think the type part is useful because I think people don't realize this. It's a data type, meaning like an array, like an object, like a string, like a number. It's a data type. It's a way of structuring data to get conflict-free replication. Okay, so there's no single like CRDT tool or whatever. It's a mathematical concept. So there's even like it's called diamond TypeScript, which is literally just the type. So obviously things like auto merge and YJS and so forth give you a lot of like the actual like helper functions and whatever. But I mean, you can use something like diamond types, which is just this literally just gives you CRD types, CRDT types, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with them. But yeah, but it's a
Schalk,
data type. Yes.
So you mentioned that there's like mathematical rules behind this. I don't want us to get into the maths necessarily, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about how that works. Because and then to that concept is that you can modify a replica without having to coordinate with other replicas, from my reading. And am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. So the point is like you can do whatever you want. I can go as long, and this is where the type part comes in, in the same way that all of these need to be the same CRDT. And also when I say CRDT, CRDT is a type. So in other words, in the same way that 1 and 5 and 7 are types, these just need to be the same CRDT type. So what that might mean is, so in my example, the type effectively is projects, and then obviously in here it's like actually like ID, whatever. I wrap this in a CRDT, and as long as these are all the same type, I should be able to combine them at any point. In the same way that if const A is a number and const B is also a number and const C is also a number, I should be able to just combine all of them together as long as they're the same type. In theory, if this was in any sane language, you wouldn't be able to do this. Okay, but JavaScript allows you to do that, But in theory, so what CRDTs give you is they give you a mathematical guarantee that as long as the things are of the same CRDT type, then you should be able to combine them at any point, in the same way that you should be able to combine numbers at any point. So yeah, you can go wild. You can go as long as it stays that type. Obviously, the moment you start changing this into turning into a string or an array or whatever, then you kind of lose that ability. But yeah, so you never have to think about it. You never have to think about resolving your data or merging your data. So it's a mathematical guarantee. So that means there's mathematics underpinning kind of the data type. That means you don't have to coordinate. You don't need to know what this guy is doing. This guy can come 500 years later and try to merge it into yours, and it's still going to work, no matter how far they drifted. Here's the thing. You might not think about this as a CRDT, but Git,
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yeah. So, think about branching. So you do get merge conflicts, and that's because Git isn't fully a CRDT. It's a CRDT-like type thing. But it's the same principle. You have all these local versions. And so if you think about something like Subversion, where you have a central thing and everyone works against the central code, and they need to be able to connect to that to actually be able to do anything, Git is kind of distributed. So it's very similar to this. And then it just uses mathematical guarantees and stuff to actually merge things in and to, So you don't need to understand.
With Git, the similarity is to my mind, is that you never destroy anything, no matter when you come along.
Exactly.
The history of that object is never lost.
Yes. So
but the C is the missing part.
Yes, exactly.
The conflict.
And so it's the same. It's the same. So how CRDTs do this is you don't actually store the data. So if let's say I have my data here. So this is very small. So let's say I have let's just say I have, tasks and whatever. Okay. And then someone else has like tasks and whatever. You don't actually, so the CRDT is not your data. You create your data from the CRDT. So you have a CRDT here, you have a CRDT here, and you make, so your CRDT, so you kind of, once again, you have this flux motion where you derive your data from the CRDT instead of, so it's kind of, you can almost think about it like it's almost like database, like migrations as well. So where what you do is you store like, you store the operation. So you're like, add this, change this, do this, but it's obviously it's in binary and it's kind of like algorithmic. So it's not as simple as the string, type add or whatever. It's very efficient. Like, and what's interesting is like a CRDT will probably be faster than actually just the JSON. Like it's amazing, like the optimizations. This is where 99% of the work with, so we're going to be using auto merge. So 99% of the work with auto merge is in kind of that kind of WASM layer, just making it really fast, like for this resolution to happen. So for it, because eventually, you're going to have like thousands and thousands and a history of like thousands and thousands and thousands. But it's just like, it's so fast. It's like, it just goes through it and it spits out the end result. So what happens is when you merge your CRDTs, so you merge this, you merge that, and then you just tell it to generate a new state for you. So your state, in the same way that you can think about like, what is that React thing where your UI is a function of your state. So like this is the React part. So you can always think about that where your data is a function of your actual CRDT. Okay, so you always derive your data is not something that you pass around. You don't send the data anywhere. You send the CRDT, which is this log of what happened around. And at any point, you can run like whatever it's like. Let's say CRDT. I think it's literally just called state, and that spits out for you the data, like in an actual data form. Okay, so let me quickly show. So this is why I said, like, even if it doesn't work now, I can show the basics here. So I'm using auto merge, and you'd be surprised. Like, look at this. Less than 50 lines. Okay, so amazing. I'm going to try and explain as much of this as possible. Okay, so I just have my model type here, and my model, this is literally just like what the CRDT should spit out when I. So you'll see here I have. So when I create a new one, add change, subscribe, listener. I don't actually even need this anymore. I can just get rid of this. I never actually use this. So, okay, a couple of things. So I'm just using the vanilla version. There's lots of ones. There's like a React one and whatever. This local key. So, okay. Let me try and sketch this out. Okay, so there's this concept of a doc in auto merge. So now we're getting into auto merge territory, which is an implementation of CRDTs. Okay, it's a tool to use CRDTs. It's not, the other super popular one, I think, which is used extensively by, I think this is the one WhatsApp uses, is YJS. Yeah, I actually know two companies, South African companies, that use YJS. So this is the other one. Auto merge is like the one I'm using here. What I like about auto merge is more correct, academically correct. So it's nice for if you want to learn about CRDTs. Whereas I think YJS takes a lot of shortcuts and stuff that aren't like traditional kind of CRDTs, but just like for better like user experience, a developer experience and stuff. Whereas like auto merge is like CRDTs proper. So doc. So you have this concept of a doc, and a doc is effectively, this is the CRDT type. So you don't even have to have a single doc per. So you can have like all your projects. You can split this however you want. This is just a data type. So you can think about it as, once again, an array or an object or a number. It's a data type. So you can have 1,000 of these things. You can have one that's, like in my example, I put my entire state in a single doc. And so this is the actual CRDT. Then there's like auto-merge has this concept of repo. Okay, and a repo is effectively just the thing that manages your docs and the syncing and whatever. So you might have other docs. So like a repo is like your configuration on a per device level, or wherever these CRDTs are. Okay, I would assume this would be like on a device. So then you can configure. Yeah.
So sorry, Schalk, just to clarify that. So the doc would be where your data structures, and the repo would be where they're stored on a particular device.
Sure. A repo is kind of like, so maybe the best way to explain this is like, if you think about ZooStand, so let's do, ZooStand create store, set, get. So like a repo is kind of like the store. And then like the docs would be the CRD, like the data type. So you might have like, all of this might be one object. Or let's say arrays is a better, because I think objects are such a loaded thing in JavaScript. I think arrays are a better example. So your entire state can just be in a single array. Okay, let's say you have a ZooStand store and it's just one array. Or you can have, like nested. You can have nested arrays, or you can have arrays inside objects, or whatever. Like, so the repo is effectively where all your CRDTs are composed. And in the same way with ZooStand, that you would have middleware on a store, like you would have middleware on your repo. So the repo is, like that handles like kind of, the behavior, like, local storage or, whatever.
Okay, so like kind of an adapter.
Yeah, so a repo is where you connect all your docs to the outside world. And I mean, the outside world, like in this case, might be local storage or whatever. There's also like, there's also a broadcast channel. So this is the only network one I have here. But there's lots. It's like WebSockets or whatever. Broadcast channel, like this is amazing. It just keeps your tabs in sync. So I don't like, let's see actually if this is going to work now. I'm wondering whether it didn't work previously because I commented this stuff out. Okay, but so effectively all I'm doing here is, so the changes I make to my collections is I just add an onsert, an on update. So these are the effects. And these side effects, all they do is I have this add change that gets exposed. Effectively all that it does is, I probably don't even need this. I can probably just export the, let's see. Let's export. Let's keep this straightforward. Let me just export the get handle directly. Okay. So I can just actually just from my, so there's not a lot going on here. So so the local key, I just use it. So I'm storing my CRDT data in IndexedDB. The local key is just like, so there's lots of adapters. You can have a look at auto-merge. Auto-merge. If you look at their docs, there's like, storage adapters, network adapters. So they have network adapters, so they have WebSockets, they have message channel, broadcast channel. You can even do stuff with like peer-to-peer stuff and whatever. So it makes no assumptions about like what you're actually going to do. So the repo is, so you'll see here I have the repo class and I instantiate it, and then I just pass it cool. Like these are the storage. This is like plugins basically. These are the storage adapters. As mentioned, I think this is the best way to describe it. If I were to do ZooStand, and create store or whatever. And let's say, here's my store, and I do create store or whatever. Yeah, cool. Good job, Copilot. But like I can add middleware to it. So I can Zustand itself ships with some middleware. So I can go Zustand / middleware, and then I'm like, cool. What I want to add dev tools. I want to add persist, and then I kind of just wrap this. I just wrap it in the middleware. And it adds that behavior to my Zustand store. In the same way, what this effectively just does, the repo is just like the central place where you manage. You can have more than one repo on a device if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's like the central place where you manage all your CRDTs from. I just give it like adapters and whatever. And then so effectively, when you create a CRD, when you create a doc, you get a URL back. Like I really don't know why they settled on URLs, but like this is it doesn't give you like a UUID back. It gives you a URL that's a unique identifier for that. Not really sure why they settled on that. There's probably a good reason, but then you can just use that. So what I do is I just store that URL then in local storage, and then you can just say in your repo, so you can use your repo to find these CRDTs for you. So I'm like, okay, I want this specific one, and then it gives me a handle back. And so all that I do is on my side, so I just on insert for TanStackDB, I just get the handle. So let's say, so I only have one CRDT, I have only one doc. So I just get the handle for it. So let me just await that. Okay. And okay, let me get it up here. So get it up there, and then like and then once I have that handle, I can say, okay, so this is now, you can think about this. This is kind of my, if you think about, it's a reference. So it's effectively a reference to that CRDT. Obviously, you can't model a CRDT in JavaScript because CRDTs don't exist as a data type in JavaScript. So you have a handle, you have a reference to it, but you can't inspect it in JavaScript. You can't go like, in my handle, do this or whatever. You need to perform operation on it to convert it into something you can use as JavaScript. So you can do lots of things. You can like, diff it. You can like you can get the actual doc itself, which you can then, So, okay. So, but what you generally do is like, so if I have a handle, that can just tell it, okay, add a new action add a new operation here. So that would just be handle, and then it's just change. And this is, I think it uses immer under the hood. So then literally I can just be like, okay, what I actually want to do here is in my CRDT. So then it obviously gives you all the type info for the data in the CRDT. Is I want to add a task, and I want to call it like and and in that task, it's not valid. It's because I'm using nominal typing. So this is a TypeScript thing I'm doing. So maybe this works. Yes. Okay, cool. Then I'm like, okay, cool. Like do this or change that or whatever. So I just mutated here. And then like if you run handle, it automatically figures out like what it should add to the CRDT based on what you want to change. So here I just like, I just have a factory function here that applies it to all because it's the same over and over and over and over again for each one. But like, I mean, if you just have one collection, you can probably just write it like directly against that collection. Let me just, okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So, and then I'm just applying these. Okay, there we go. So this is all you actually do then. So I just have a side effect that when I make, like my source of truth in my client is still TanStackDB. I'm not reading directly from the CRDT. The only time I use the CRDT is when I'm the CRDT is what I'm sending to other devices and to Dropbox and whatever. I'm never sending the actual data. I'm sending the operations, a list of the operations around. But like on my client, I'm working with the data as if it's like that is my source of truth. So I'm using TanStackDB. So this is just to actually, every time I make a change in TanStackDB, to apply that same change to the CRDT. So let's try that out quickly. So, and if this is working as it should, I might even that broadcast. I think this is what the problem was last time. Okay. I think even between tabs now, like it should be in sync between. So let me just test this out. Come on, duplicate. Yeah, okay. So if I were to go here and I were to change this, I save that. Wait, it didn't even. Oh, there's probably a JavaScript error. But if it's working correctly and it's not throwing errors, then it should, if I go here and I do this, it should just always be in sync. Okay, I think I broke it. Oh, this is not great. Okay. Oh, it doesn't even throw an error. Let's see. Let me just quick. No, don't open codecs. Let me just try quickly. Did it just add that now? No, wait, there's something flipping weird going on here. Wait, I messed up. Did you see that? Like,
yeah, I did.
Oh no, what?
No.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There's something super weird going on here now.
Yeah, it was just a bit slow. Maybe it's just.
No, I had to refresh.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident it's that stuff that I did with the last minute where I asked a Copilot to fix it for me, because it was working fine until Copilot started doing weird.
There it's working.
Okay. Oh, it's maybe just the hot module reloading that was.
Yeah, quite possible. Yeah.
Okay, but so let's see if the CRDT, if the auto merge stuff is working, this should be like 100% in sync. Okay, if I reload, okay. If it's working, it should, but it doesn't seem like it is working.
That's the broadcast one, right, Schalk?
Yes. So let me just see. So yeah, okay. No, it's just like I did the thing where it's a classic thing when you have to demo something and there's just one bug. And you try and fix that one bug just before the demo, and you break the entire app, and you can't get it back to a working state again. That has happened to me so many times. I should have just left it and be like, "Oh, there's this weird bug." But anyway, but I think like it should. Let's actually see. It should be able to send the CRDT up. So let's see. Yeah, there you go. Upload.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Right. And so all that I'm effectively doing is I'm going, I have a function here that is to CRD. So I get the handle. So this is the thing, that save. So if you do save, it turns it, because the CRDTs are binary, basically. Like if I were to go and look, and I think this is something that's going to keep on tripping you up all the time, is like you have to understand that CRDTs are a data type that JavaScript doesn't understand. So like so you're interfacing with it as a binary file, and you're interfacing with it through like methods and stuff. You can't ever look directly in a CRDT because JavaScript has no way of actually showing this data type to you. It's like, for example, when you do, when you get that object thing, when you serialize an object. It's the same principle. It's like it can't express it to you. So, and even if you inspect it, let's look at application and IndexedDB. It should be in here somewhere. Let's see. So here's the documents. So you'll see, like even here, like it's a it's a binary,
right.
and this is what makes it so performant. But it's a pity I can't show it in earnest now. But it does, and like you can do lots of cool stuff. So you can do like auto merge. What's it called? Only changes or compare changes, or you can do lots of cool stuff. You can say, okay, only say, like extract these changes, like since this part, like into a binary, or compare these two things and only and pull out the stuff that's different and save that to a binary, or create a new doc based on. So docs are also immutable. So every time you're creating a new doc. So this is something I maybe didn't mention. CRDTs are an immutable type. You can't mutate them directly. You create a new CRDT each time.
Right.
Okay, so, but, okay, it does seem like it's sending it up to Dropbox. Let me just try again. Yeah, and so you can inspect this, but yeah, it's binary. So, like you can't, but look how small this is.
Yeah.
Like
imagine doing that with JSON, the difference.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like I think they stressed. You should read some of the auto merge team. So I did mention this last time as well. Like the reason, so they created auto merge based on kind of the paper that coined the concept of local first. So like they built auto merge like to test out their theories here. So
it's really interesting.
This is a fascinating read, and they kind of look to get and like our get resolve stuff and whatever.
I also I just wanted to mention, Schalk, I did some reading of my own. Not that I understand this to the level that you do at all, but like CRDTs are not a new concept. It's been around for the first paper was 2011.
Yes,
and then the like, major one was 2018. So it's like the people have been thinking about this for a long time.
And I think this is the thing. This is the thing about also local first, is that like this idea of the cloud being like the fulcrum upon which all the logic of your app like rests is a very new idea. It's probably only like a decade or maybe 2 decades max like old. Before that, like you just like the idea of having unrestricted, uninterrupted access to a centralized database that's somewhere else was like an insane idea. Like you would never have that. So like a lot of this technology like actually come from an era where like the idea of just having like, unrestricted access to a central server is wild. And it's also like the other thing as well is like there's also like we've just made a trade-off, so now, okay, you don't need to think about how do you merge data and how do you account for branching, and like we've effectively removed replication. Okay, so you don't have to worry about replication. There's one single source of truth, and you always know if it says there this task is red, that is the source of truth. Like there's no like, is it red on yours? Like, is it blue on yours? And like, if it's green on yours and red on yours and whatever, how do we combine that and whatever? So we've removed that, but I think we've just added a new level of like complexity. Now you have to think about like, how do scaling? How do you scale if 5 billion users want to talk to this database at the same time to figure out what color this task is? How do you scale that? And like, how do you actually, what happens if someone has flaky internet connection? What happens if two people try and change the same thing at the same time?
Sure.
What happens if you do an optimistic update, but then that fails? Or, and the other thing, the benefit about this is you never see a loading spinner, because what you're working with is local. It's this. And this just syncs, and you can sync this now, you can sync this tomorrow, you're not beholden to when this syncs. So you can do CRDTs and whatever, and people can just sync it on demand or whatever. They can just press a button when they want to sync, or you can do it every minute or whatever, and it's never going to conflict. It should always resolve.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying, and tell me if I'm off base here, is that we kind of, instead of one single source of truth, like every node in this is a valid source of truth.
Yes. And it's not even like source of truth. It's like it's bits of data, and you can share. And there's this entire thing about data ownership in here as well.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That
is also not mentioned here. So in the same, you can think about this almost like a Google Doc. There's no how can I see all Google Docs in existence? Okay, that's a bad example, because you can actually theoretically, because Google has them on one big server somewhere. But let's say Excel, it's there's no way to see all the Excel documents in existence in a single place. So that depends on who, how do you and we replicate that. It's actually not we artificially kind of almost replicate that behavior on our servers. So so you sign in and say, I'm Justin, and because you're Justin, the server the REST endpoint restricts what you're able to download. So you see it as if you only have access so it's the same, it achieves the same purpose. Does that make sense? And when I share, so instead of actually passing permissions around and saying, oh, Justin is able to access this on the server, Schalk is able to access this, you're actually just giving them the data. You're sharing the data around, and you're keeping the data in sync between devices. So I think a lot of the CRDT stuff is really going to pick up if WebRTC becomes, because then
just before we go onto that, Schalk, just on this sort of this kind of data and what you're talking about the server and all of that, I saw a really good example that just made perfect sense to me, and that was it was a really simple one, but it's a counter.
Yes, exactly.
If I increment the counter once and you increment the counter once, but we do it slightly different times, those are both true.
Yes.
I'm not incorrect and you're not incorrect. But we are both correct. So it needs to increment twice. Whereas in a traditional model, you have to go who's correct here?
Yes. And and sometimes maybe but this is the thing. It's it's a reorientation. So what you're passing around, it's almost I hate to say this, but it's almost like a blockchain. What you are actually passing around is you're passing around a record of what has happened. And so so I know that I did this. On your machine, you have a record of you did this, and now we want to sync it up. And so you send a record of what you did, I send it, and the CRDT, the something like auto merge looks at that and it figures out, okay, how do you combine this into a new CRDT that has both of those? It's literally just ways of syncing operations. So one of the key benefits also that I didn't even touch on is, out of the box, you just get if you want a little screen here that's you want to I'm actually building a full on one I just haven't had time to work on it now this week. But I'm actually turning this into like a full-on like usable app that I actually want to see if I can push this to Google Play Store, where you just use Dropbox as your database. But like I can click on Justin and I can literally see a full record of all that like history, Justin's entire history. I can see like all the changes. You just have that because that's what's being recorded. You don't have to have a separate table in your Postgres database that keeps track of like also, what are the actions that have been performed and so forth. Yeah. So, but I think like most of this like is really going to pick up if WebRTC becomes a thing, because then you can just have devices that chat directly to one another. You don't even need a server.
Yeah.
I can just directly peer-to-peer connect to you, and we can work on something together. So, like even like I think like this is also a very primitive explanation of CRDTs. But if we're both working on this document, like this is a really like they do use a CRDT here to know that okay, Justin drew this line here. Schalk, like and it's not like it's almost like a CRDT. They are actually using a CRDT. Let's see, is Figma using CRDTs for collaboration? Yeah. No, Figma. Where was it now? They had a bit of a disclaimer. So they actually have. Oh, this is cool. I'm gonna save this. Where they actually talk about. They actually go into CRDTs quite a bit.
There's actually really good stuff on Figma on how they solve these technological problems.
Yes,
they're very open about it.
Yeah. So they say, okay, so they kind of do what YJS also does. Is it's a CRDT, but it's not a academically pure CRDT. They take some shortcuts here, like because a CRDT is a mathematical concept. So like obviously, like it has certain rules in terms of how it should work, and so YJS does this as well. They don't follow it to a T. It's kind of like their own homebrewed version of a CRDT. This is cool. I didn't know about this. They kind of explain it in a lot. Oh, this is cool. You could have probably just read this article instead of having me try and stumble over my words and try and explain what CRDTs are. This is great. I didn't even know about this. But yeah, like for this type of thing, it's like so you might not even know. Like I'm pretty sure things like Slack. I'm pretty sure Slack uses CRDTs. Rootly CRDTs. Okay, but anyway, so I think I've hopefully kind of explained kind of my understanding of the concept to some degree, and why it's useful and how it's useful. And even if I don't have a working version of it, what I'm building and what I'm hoping I'll eventually share it when it's done is an actual project management app that's multi-tenant, where you can have like you can have different teams like in Slack, and you can have projects and tasks, and people can comment and add attachments and whatever, and you can share teams. You can add someone to a team, and a team is literally just going to be represented by a binary file. Like by the CRDT binary file. And there's no database, no nothing. And it's just polling in the background like every 10 seconds. So if I make changes, it might take 10 seconds to show up on Justin's side or whatever. But I mean, like, it's crazy to be able to have like kind of build this type of collaborative app with no server, no authentication. Like I'm just relying on Dropbox to just share this file around. That's all. Everything else is just like happening locally. And that's wild. If you think about like nowadays people spin up Superbase just for a to-do app or whatever, so
Yes.
or accounting app. Yeah. So yeah, so hopefully I'll share that. I'll maybe come back to this recording and actually share it in there. I don't know if there was any questions by anyone, Justin.
If anyone, there were some comments, which are just Simon, when we were talking about
also, like,
we were talking about
yeah,
we were talking about Flax.
Yeah. Ah, geez, yeah. Simon's old school. I think Simon's like the JavaScript grandpa.
And then Sam started by saying,
yeah, exactly.
But then concluded with,
yeah. But yeah, no, shout out to Simon. Like, he originally founded way back, like, JavaScript in South Africa. But like all proper JavaScript developers, he's kind of like become a real software engineer now and has moved on to real programming languages. You find that quite a bit, where people who used to be JavaScript developers actually are like, no, I'm actually going to start writing Rust or whatever. But yeah, so he was kind of like the OG, like, JavaScript developer in South Africa. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Schalk, I just wanted to mention something. Maybe you could just do a quick search for it.
Yes.
Roshi, R-O-S-H-I, by
R-O-S-H-I. R-O what? S-H-I. Oh, like that.
Space SoundCloud.
SoundCloud.
Yes, so SoundCloud built a, there we go, top link.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
so
nice.
They built a, I just came across this when I was doing some reading. They built this for your stream on your SoundCloud profile. Yeah.
And I think
so as you favorite, as you add, etc., on across multiple devices. Because you can have the SoundCloud app, you can be on the web. It updates automatically.
I think and I think also like a lot of people don't really ever encounter CRDTs, not because they're like this obscure concept. I think they're like a much more common concept than we realize, which is why I wanted to do a talk on it, because it felt like people think it's this obscure thing. But like the thing is, like, if you're working at a specific scale, no matter what app, if you just have a basic CRUD app, like at some point, the scale that you're working at, you're gonna like the milliseconds between HTTP requests are gonna like actually make or break things. So if two people are editing the same thing on the same, or like we encountered this. I was working on a project where like around like I'm trying to not give too much away, but it was kind of around like stock and retail, and stock, like acquiring stock for retail stores and stuff. And like the thing there is, what happened is there was a very specific time in the year when people would use that tool. And so what happened is, like, people were just like, you had these little bits of activity, drip activity here and there throughout the year, but then there's like a very specific time of the year where like you just have the spike, everyone's using it at the same time, and like now all of a sudden there's like millisecond differences between this person is changing this thing, this person is changing this thing. So you would literally have people who would like, you would save something and you'd move on and it would save. And then because it would poll, like it obviously it's real time, so it polled, and like you would literally, as you're moving on, like after it changed, you'd see it change back again because someone else synced their stuff. And so like this is where you start running. So like it's an issue of scale, and I think it's also just like a lot of people, because they don't know about CRDTs, they figure out really complex, convoluted ways to solve this problem that could have been very easily solved by a CRDT. So then they kind of start doing things like, you can't edit this thing while someone else is viewing it, and
it gets locked.
Like lots of weird stuff, or or you get an alert that says 2 people try to change the same thing. Which version do you want? And like, I think it's just people settle for like very weird ways to solve this. But like if you work at a certain scale, like you're going to run into this eventually. Like as you said, like you wouldn't think SoundCloud. I can imagine like like Figma, because you have lots of people doing lots of things at the same time. But you'd be like, oh, SoundCloud is just like you just play audio files. Why do you need a CRDT for that? I'm actually curious what the main thing is. What's the big prompt for them? What do they use it for?
So if you're on SoundCloud and you're scrolling through latest things or whatever, and there's all sorts of actions you can take on an audio file. So you can share it, you can repost it to your feed, you can favorite it, you can like it, all of those actions. And then and then there are millions of people doing that, right? And then you're on your desktop, you're on your tablet app, you're on your iPhone, you're in CarPlay.
I'd probably imagine a lot of it is like people like playing it from like kind of their TV or whatever.
Whatever. Yes, exactly.
And then like like you want to keep that in sync. So if you skip ahead like 3 minutes, then it needs to be on the TV.
It does. It absolutely does that. You can play something on your desktop, pick it up on your phone, and it's the same place.
So you might have scenarios. And so one of the things like this is really cool, and maybe this is like something to say in closing, because I think like this is the thing I really want to stress with local first, is like local first is not about making things offline. Local first is about moving state locally in a way that local first is about replicating state and keeping that state in sync. And by taking that approach instead of a central one source of data to rule them all, like you actually reduce a lot of other complexity. Here's a good example. Like you get all this other side benefit. So you might be wondering, so this broadcast channel thing, you might be wondering like, hey, why don't we have more of this? Like why is it only supported in, why doesn't Zustand support this? Like, why on Zustand can't we just have a plugin that keeps your Zustand store in sync between all your browser tabs? Like, like how many times have you encountered that thing where you log out of a service, but then you have 4 other tabs still open that you're logged in, and it gives like 400 errors because like the token is no longer valid or whatever. It doesn't log you out in other tabs or whatever. I get that sometimes with LinkedIn as well, like where I message someone, but then in the tab that I'm in right now has a different message history than some other, and I open the wrong tab, and it's like, what? Where are my messages? But so the point being, like this browser channel dispatcher thing, it's based on this. Okay, it's actually a built-in way for you to communicate between tabs. But here's the catch. It's very unreliable. Like, because of the way that like memory gets managed between tabs, obviously like the JavaScript stops running. Like if like all the browsers have different rules in terms of when it should stop running that service or whatever, which is also why things like React Query and whatever have that when you refocus, it reruns the query again. So it's very unreliable because you might send it to a tab that's no longer running in the background. Like Chrome has decided to freeze it. But that's a non-problem if you use CRDTs. Because with CRDTs, it doesn't matter, like, when you receive that, when you send that, it's always able to apply the changes. So, like, whether you send it now and some tab, you open that tab tomorrow only, and it starts running again, and fetches that, it's able to resolve, let's say 50 messages have been sent to that tab since, and it hasn't started processing those. doesn't matter. It's CRDTs. They can just like suck it all in and squeeze it together. So yeah, like this is why, like, even if you just want to use CRDTs for this, like this is this is a pretty great use case.
because that's a very common problem and use case that you've mentioned, that we all, anyone who's worked with like sensitive auth and things like that, it's a problem that's a real headache.
Yeah, we had a big problem with Palmetrics where, like, so in Palmetrics, you like it's multi-tenant, so you can obviously you can toggle. So what people would do is, because they would have these elaborate workflows where they upload their things or whatever, so they'd use multiple tabs on different pages or whatever. But then in the one they would switch to like a different organization, and then everything just gets crazy because like you're like, now, like, where are you logged in? Like, are you now like when it tries to refresh the auth token, and like it just, things just get crazy. Like, and if you edit a product, it tries to find the product on the wrong thing, and your local storage gets all crazy. And so
we've had exactly the same problems with multi-tenanted applications. And then even more complicated, where people have different roles in different tenants within the same application. It's horrendous.
And I think one of the things I think, like, that's also maybe in closing worth mentioning about local first is that local first is weird and it's alien and it's strange, and it's just because it's not and this is why I'm kind of making it my life's mission to push this concept of local first. I think there's a lot of other people that are pushing it quite. I know it's Scott Dolinsky from Syntax. He's like drinking the local first Kool-Aid like so hard. Like he just pumps out so many videos. Like, look at this, so many videos about like local first. But sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen.
Oh, we missed that.
Yeah, no, but like, just anyway. Like, I mean, like, I think even if you just go YouTube, YouTube Syntax, local first, like, like, look at this, like, like they're just pushing out so much, like he's a massive fan. So there's a lot of people that are pushing this, and I think it's like the reason for that is because I think this is a genuine better way to build software. Period. It's a way to build more maintainable software. I think we've been like, I think there's a lot of value in what the cloud gives us, but I do think we've kind of pivoted a bit too hard into the cloud, where like now you start getting these like like the 8 sleeps thing, where beds catch fire when AWS goes down, or like this is perfect. What was that thing about like we have two versions of Outlook with the Oculus stuff.
The Oculus stuff. That was amazing.
Like and someone had like like, and if you actually read what the problem is, like, it's exactly this. It's exactly that. Like it like turns out there's a like, if you think you have bad ping, wait until you are like kilometers away from
on the far side of the moon.
Yes. So that was the issue, effectively, is that it couldn't retrieve it from the server because the ping was just so high. And when you think about it, like, it's like, oh man, like there was like but then it's like one small step. Like there's a meme. This is amazing. Exactly. Someone shared this on Reddit, where it's like, 1972, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And then it's like Artemis 2026. We have 2 Microsoft Outlooks and neither one is working.
So good.
But it's like, but like I think like the irony being, like, this was a solved problem with Outlook, because you would only fetch new messages. Like, you wouldn't have to have unrestricted access. You wouldn't have to have like, what's it, Outlook 365, or like, where it's effectively you need to have uninterrupted access to the Microsoft service to read emails that you've already received. you know.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
probably just wanted. They probably didn't like. I can't imagine like them using Outlook to communicate. You know, to being like, okay, mission control, can you send us an email, please? They were probably just wanting to find info that have been emailed to them in the past. You know, there's
Yes.
probably like some
Yeah.
document or some instructions or
Yeah.
something that was emailed.
Yes,
And they wanted to
exactly.
go into
Some
other.
documentation. Yeah.
Yeah, like so this is a solved problem that we've kind of like unsolved by moving everything to the cloud. And I think like there's something to be said there that I do think, and it's not about like, I think I've made this clear now already. It's not about offline. It's not about not using the cloud. It's about a reconfiguration of the relationship, using the cloud to like as a sync layer instead of using the cloud as a place where, and sure, some of your business logic is going to have to live on the cloud, but stuff like actually reading an email that you've already received in the past and read already, you don't, you shouldn't have to hit an AWS server somewhere just to get something again that you've already downloaded.
Right.
So I genuinely, and I think like there's also like it just simplifies your stack because you're not, you're not dealing with like this much. Like, so the thing that kills software in terms of complexity is asynchronous behavior. So like you just like things are just so much simpler if you just don't have to worry about about HTTP sending things up and down, up and down. Like what if you send it and you navigate away to a different page? What if you send it and you delete the thing or whatever? Like you don't worry about that because you just work against your local like slice. And like that, just the sync engine just keeps that in track. I also want to quickly just talk about like there are different solutions to this. I did mention PowerSync, which is amazing. Check them out. It's actually a bunch of South African guys. I think I joked about this last time where like if you look at the people's surnames like Botha, Volkman, Hofmeyer, Landman. Shout out to Christian Landman. I chat with him quite a bit. Brunk, so it's a bunch of South African guys. Electric SQL is amazing. What's really cool about Electric SQL, and this is where the local first part comes in again, is Electric SQL is literally just for subscriptions. Like they don't care about like actually persisting, allowing you to make changes to they don't care about what happens when you change the data. They are literally just subscribing to a piece of your data on this and keeping that in sync locally. So they don't even assume, they don't care about offline. They don't give a crap about offline, but they're using local first to simplify the stack once again. You can actually check out, like, I think, like, I really like their, and check this out. So I think they have a demo somewhere. It's a Electric SQL demo where they show this in action, and like just like the performance is flipping insane. Where is it? Is it Electric SQL? I think it was Electric SQL, but like where they have like thousands and thousands of rows, and you can just like instantly query that stuff. Okay, apparently I can't find anything tonight. 1,000 rows table. Can I find it? Yeah, I'm not gonna find it now. But yeah, and then, but you can add, I think this is probably like a CRDT implementation of it as well. Yeah, to use. So there's a lot of like different parts to this local first thing. And you can, CRDTs are one of them. So I wanted to give a shout out to Electric SQL. They're really cool. I did mention YJS. There's also another one called CRDTs. I think it's like Loro. Yeah, Loro. Like they also do lots of cool stuff. I think it's maybe them that have that it might be them that have that. I just remember like there's one example where it's just like a ridiculous amount, because your first thing would be like, okay, cool, this is all cool and well, but like local first, but buddy, like we have like trillions of tables and rows of data. Like you can't do local first with that. And like it's an actual example of just like an insane amount of data where they do some clever things with how they slice the data and whatever. It might be them. I can't remember. Let's see. Okay. I'm not going to search for it now. So there's, I did mention PowerSync. I did mention Electric SQL, Trailblaze, Trailbase. So Trailbase is pretty cool. It's kind of like a single executable like thing, kind of like Firebase, but something that you can just run like locally and wherever. What's the other one? Oryx. And this is also to me like a bit of a hint that I think local first is probably on the cusp of going mainstream. Maybe
I think so too.
I think like once TanStack DB reaches like 1.0, and like we're going to see what we're going to see is we're going to start seeing people that just plug TanStack DB into React Query, because they just have a plug and play way to do that. And I think then people are gonna, like, as they start playing around then with TanStack DB, like start exploring lots of the other things and be like, whoa, this TanStack DB thing is amazing. Like I can do lots of other things with it. So
just
sorry,
to mention, if you're interested in finding out more about TanStack DB, watch Schalk's previous talk where he covered a lot of that.
No, I would say no. Don't do that. Go and read.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that. Go and read TanStack DB Interactive Man. What's his Ferreira?
Maxi.
Yes, I blanked on his name now. Like, go and read his article.
Okay.
Like, it's really cool, and he also explains this concept of local first and whatever, and he has like really cool interactive examples where he kind of
nice.
he kind of shows and this is kind of like so like this is amazing, and he kind of talks about like if you were to just use React Query but you plug TanStack DB into React Query, just like how much simpler it makes your code.
Cool.
So
Schalk, I found that example. It's in our private chat. It is Electric SQL.
Oh yes, okay. This thing. Yeah. And like also the other thing is like to keep in mind is that this is all because it's a data type by itself. So this is all like binary. So it's a lot more performant than like so even Electric SQL, like this isn't sending like JSON, like no, this isn't the one I was looking at, but I mean like this is good enough. Like this is also like look at this.
Yeah, look at that scroll bar.
Okay. Yeah. Like, so they're doing lots of magic under the hood. Look at this. Like, there's literally like no loading.
Yeah, it's amazing.
20,000 tasks.
Yeah.
Look at this.
It's insane.
Let's search for something. Let's search for hello. Look at that.
Yeah, it's wild.
Can you build this with your AWS? Like,
no chance.
Just in rules. Like, I appreciate like this is just open to everyone, and anyone can just add random stuff here. Like, I'm just glad I didn't open this and there's like some obscenity Okay,
Yeah,
let me just stop.
good
Let
point.
me just not scroll anymore.
Yeah, let's not investigate too much. We'll share the link.
But here's the thing, and like you look at this and you're like, yeah, man, like this is probably like, you probably have to do some crazy stuff to get this. Like, let me rather just stick with my REST endpoints and send, pagination, next page, or whatever. But like, that's the thing. It's not like, it's only complicated if you take if you don't take a local first approach to it. Like, if we just look at the actual, like, let's look at an example like stacks. Okay, this is just the stacks. So once again, as I mentioned, like, it's not, there is complexity, but you pay that complexity up front. And then so this is what you do. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, create a collection. Cool.
Done.
Yeah. And you just then you query stuff in your. So when I go here and I'm like, Schalk, it's like literally, it's probably just running a function, like in the JavaScript. It's probably just a function, electric SQL function call. There's no orchestration or caching or, React query sending it up and invalidating the keys. And then what if you type this while it's still out? Like this, it's not even deep bouncing. Like, look at this. I cannot. And all of this stuff you can self-host. So with, like, they obviously make their money by offering cloud services. And it gets expensive, but I mean, like, if you're a big organization, like this, this is a big deal. Yeah.
So just click on that board, click on board in the sidebar. Bam.
Look at this. It is insane, guys. Like,
look at that.
And this is and this is what's so frustrating. Like, sorry, and I'm obviously have a bit of a chip on my shoulder here, because, like, whenever I talk about this stuff, people are like, local first is cool and all, but like, it doesn't really scale. Like, we have to spin up our AWS, like Elasticsearch and whatever, because you can't just put the stuff on the front end. Like, come on, man, be real. Like, and they're like, bro, check this out. But obviously you pay good money for it if you want them to just manage it on your behalf.
Of course,
but you can self-host it as well. Like, I think you can self-host their stuff. I'm not sure. Like, a lot of the other stuff, like what's it called? PowerSync, you can self-host.
Automate.
All those things you can self-host. I think you can self-host. Let me actually just look at the docs. I might stand corrected when it comes to electric. So self-host. Oops. What? No, man. Self. No, I might.
Maybe search for host.
Oh, yeah. Here you go. The easiest way to use electric is Electric Cloud. Alternatively, the deployment guide covers how to self-host. There you go. Okay. Most of these things have, like, just Docker. Like, it's just a Docker thing. You can just, people run these things on Superbase, believe it or not.
Yeah, that demo is using Superbase.
Yeah. And, like, I would challenge anyone, give these tools a try. Give Electric SQL a try. Give PowerSync a try. I'll take my commission. Guys. PowerSync,
if you
guys,
sign up for the cloud hosting,
Christian, if you guys are listening, Conrad, if you guys are listening, like, I'll take my commission up front. But, like, sign up for it, give it a try, and then, like, decide, okay, maybe this is not. But, like, I think it's just, like, people, like, there's a lot of ignorance around, like, how amazing this is, and it's just, it feels weird and hard because it's so different from what we're used to. In the same way that, with React and JSX, when people are like, whoa, no, what the hell is this JSX, like HTML in your JavaScript? Like, who would use this React thing? It's so stupid. Like, and like, and it was just a paradigm thing. It's just like now and I think it's the same also like with jQuery as well. There was definitely a time in my life where people thought jQuery was easier than just using plain JavaScript. And like now it's kind of like the other way around for a lot of people who've never used jQuery. It's like, this jQuery thing is so stupid. It's so hard to get anything done. Why not just use plain JavaScript? So
yeah,
it's just
exactly.
I think it's like if you were to start today, I honestly think starting with like something like this, as opposed to doing your classic like Laravel deployment or your classic Next.js or whatever, like like I think like this is way easier. I think like a lot of it is just it's colored by you already understand the alternative, so the alternative feels easier. But yeah, okay.
Sweet.
Anyway, yeah, let's keep it
All right.
let's stop it there. There's a lot to chat about. I hope this is useful to someone. I just love chatting about this. Clearly.
No, that was really great, Schalk. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have an example done, and then I'll share that, because I also think that would be really useful, just seeing how the pieces come together with this weird like kind of like Dropbox CRDT thing I'm building. Yeah.
Yes, that would be great.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. We will be back next month. We thinking about doing a CSS one. It's been a long time, but keep your eyes on the platforms, and we'll announce in due course. And yeah, thanks again, Schalk. That was really fantastic.
Awesome. Okay. Cool.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
everyone.
Bye.